If you're thinking that you want to take that action step, why wait? Book your session right now. Go to liberateyourself.com, click on either Liberate Hollywood or Liberate Emporium, see our amazing practitioners and who resonates most with you. And then book a session via Skype, phone, or in person. We're here for you, and it's your time to start creating your life. For centuries, mankind has been fascinated with realms outside of our conscious awareness. Through a series of interviews with practitioners, guest speakers, and experts, Liberate the Podcast covers all that and more. From health and holistic healing to the supernatural, we aim to educate, motivate, inspire, and liberate your consciousness. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Liberate the Podcast. Today we have a very interesting topic that a lot of people are always curious about, that, I find that a lot of people ask when they start the spiritual journey and different things like that about, what about before this lifetime? What happens kind of after this lifetime in the whole realm of past lives? So we have Jeroen with us today, and he does quantum healing with past life regression. It's kind of like a hybrid, and I'll have him explain it a little bit more. So welcome to Liberate the Podcast, Jeroen. You want to let everybody know a little bit about you?
Sure. Hi. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited about it. My name is Jeroen. Thank you for pronouncing my name correctly. It's usually a little tricky for people. So my name is a little weird because I'm from the Netherlands. It's a very common name where I'm from. But in Los Angeles, it's kind of strange. But of course, I play the exotic angle. It helps me.
Yeah.
What I do is quantum healing hypnosis technique. It is a form of hypnosis that is developed by Dolores Cannon. It might be a name that people are familiar with. She's all over YouTube speaking about past lives. A little bit more about me, right?
Yeah, or we can get into a little bit about, what got you interested in past lives, because I've been doing hypnotherapy for 12 years, and I've studied a little bit of past lives, but it's not been something that's really grabbed me personally.
Right.
I'm fascinated by it, but I haven't went into the depths of making that a modality of, so I think that the people that do, it's probably an interesting story.
Gotcha. Okay. Sure. It's kind of a long story. I'll try to keep it short. So, as a kid, growing up in the Netherlands, I always thought there was more to life than just a physical reality. So I was always looking for that, but I didn't have an experience of it. And gradually, throughout my life, little glimpses of it started happening. And then, much later, in my 20s or 30s, I was at a friend's place and I picked up a book written by Dolores Cannon. I had not heard of her name before. And it was called Custodians, and it was her experiences as a hypnotherapist with people that had been abducted by aliens. And so through her client, she found out lots of information about how the universe works, different races, different planets, different realms of existence, and it resonated so much with what I thought life was like. So not just existing on the physical realm, but also teaming with life on different levels, and it spoke about that. Yeah. So my interest was just piqued, and I read the whole book from cover to cover, and then got some more, and I wanted to find out about this lady. So I found out she was teaching in the Netherlands within 3 months, and they had just lowered the eligibility requirements. At the time, I think now it's much lower, but at the time you had to be a hypnotherapist for a year, or when I joined, you had to be working with people for a year, which I had done. I was a trained art therapist.
Okay.
So I took a course, and I've been regressing people ever since, and it's been amazing.
Wow.
For me personally, because I get to connect with these different realms of existence through my clients. My clients go to lifetimes where they are on the planet in a human body, but also on the planet in an animal or a plant or part of the atmosphere. I've even had somebody be a rock for a lifetime just to experience what that is. But also people go to energetic realms where we're just energy bodies, or alien lifetimes as well.
Okay.
So
let's say, okay, so you read this Dolores Canyon book. You say, okay, I'm launching into, taking this course, and I want to learn more. I want to get my hands on whatever I can understand, and then you start working with clients. And what was like your first regression like? Like, the first person that you took on a journey.
That was actually quite amazing. It was not a slow start at all.
Okay.
I remember it very clearly. Unfortunately, I don't have the recording anymore because at the time I was doing cassette tapes.
Okay.
Things have changed since then. But
tremendously.
Yes. Since the client at the time went to a lifetime where he was living in space and in a sort of a cluster unit of different colors. And these people did not have what we on Earth have, is the capacity to feel emotions. They were fascinated by it, so they had sent one of them down to the planet in my client's body, experiencing life, to find out about emotions. And so how they tried to approximate feelings was to use the vibration of color. So for him, like the color red resonated, so his living quarter was completely red, and he lived with a woman, so there were the different sexes were present in their race. But I had a very strong, when that being came in, the energy, through the technique, his body allowed the energy to come in, and I started shaking. The vibration of it was so high compared to what we're used to on the planet, that I just was physically affected by it. So
wow.
that doesn't happen very often, but that was the first regression I've ever had.
So what a powerful start, right?
I was oh yes, give me more of this,
So not only are you having, the client validate, the information or the experience for the client, but you were having that validation, so it became really real for you. It was more than just, okay, this is an interesting topic that I resonate with some of the theories and the information, but now I had this real visceral effect, so
Thank
I know
you, yes.
this stuff is true.
Exactly. Because it was so beautiful, and thank you for connecting the dots, because I'm realizing it now. Because from the time I was a kid, I had been looking for a spiritual experience of these different realms, and at the time I had a little glimpse of it, but this was a very clear experience of it that was visceral to me. Yeah. So that was my entry into this, using this technique, and it was, I never stopped doing it. It was just great.
Wow. What's one of the so you were kind of touching on it a little bit before, but for those there's some people that are listening that you have, maybe you've had your own past life regression done, or you've resonated with Dolores Cannon or Brian Weiss, or the Destiny of Souls author, Journey of Souls, or whatever. If maybe you've already been down this rabbit hole, but there might be a lot of people that the idea of past lives is a new realm. And
right.
So through the experience of what you've learned and digested through information of others, and what you've experienced and learned through working with hundreds if not thousands of clients through the years, what is some of the dynamics of the past life realm? You touched on it a little bit, somebody experienced an animal or different lives on that, but if you could break it down to you kind of see it in this many different segments, or these are the different types of realms that people go into.
Okay, so yes, I've already explained the places people can go to. The main thing for me that I always tell my groups when I do groups is that, because sometimes people can have a confusing experience when they are not aware that there is no time in the realms that besides our physical realm. So I try to craft an image for myself that I can work with. So as I see it, we have a soul, and the soul splits off into different segments to experience itself, to learn more, and to become more of what it already is. So people can go into parallel lifetimes, so lifetimes that are happening right now, besides their normal, the lifetime that they know. So that's how I see it.
Could it be all like? So I always bounce back and forth between the notion of this, and this is just completely kind of off the cusp here, guys, listeners. But I kind of go between, okay, there's the past lives, which should indicate something from the past, but then there's the whole notion that the time-space continuum is all happening within this moment. So then, is it really your past life, or is it just another life?
Thank you. That's what I was trying to explain. You just had the right words for it. It all happens right now, and don't ask me how to explain the mechanics of that, because my human mind goes into overload when I try to figure that out.
Because we're given an experience of a linear type of experience, So there was yesterday, and then there's today, and then there's tomorrow, and we plan our goals and our things and our drives across the country within this linear fashion and this step-by-step approach. So I think it's hard to kind of have that more quantum universal type of mindset.
Of course, because we're human.
But
that's accurate. We call it past lives, but the word past lives is a little inaccurate, because they're just happening all at once.
Interesting.
Yeah, and however you want to imagine that, take a shot at it and let me know if you find a good model to work with, because it's a little abstract for me.
Yeah. So in this abstractness of dealing with it, I think a lot of people hear of, I think the main thing that people go into when they think of past lives is colonial days or the Renaissance or, the ancient civilizations, and then they go back into those realms. But I heard you mention other realms and other types of experiences, whether planetarily or, galactically. So what kind of realms have you seen?
Well, a very interesting realm is the in-between life state that we all go through. So when people go, say they're in a past life, and then they go to their death experience, and then I ask them what's going on, and so people report looking down at their body, and they either float up or somebody's there to help them, to take them to where they're supposed to be going. So it seems to be a pretty congruent experience between people, what happens after we die. We don't go into oblivion. It's just taking off a coat, and then they usually go to a very bright space, a light. They describe a light, and sometimes there's people there, guides that are welcoming them, and then there's different options. There can be a life review, there can be a resting period, there can be more training, or these different facets all happening.
And so let's look at those different aspects. Right. So if somebody chooses an option of a life review, what happens?
The times I've had it described, it was I wonder if it really looks like that, but they described it as sitting in a large round table with a holographic device in the center, which was their life, and then the other souls that were dealing with the lifetime, they were sitting around, and there was a discussion what you did right here, and then you would flick through the images, and it would pop out with all the feelings and the thoughts. It's a super holographic snapshot of what was going on, to see what lessons were learned. And that is a very detailed past life review. Life review. Sometimes people go to the Akashic Records. It's a giant library, ethereal library, where all human experiences have been recorded, and people have their book of life, and you can flick back and forth between the pages and see what you did or what you're going to do.
Nice. And in that, since there's kind of a universal experience through the clients that you've seen of this realm of transition, have you found that to help people deal with loss, grief, their own mortality, have you seen a change in perspective in their let's call it physical 3D realm of existence?
Sure. So usually people come to see me, it's a one session, and not everybody reports back, but that is part of it. Also have people that have lost people, and they come in with questions to have an experience of them, to see them, and that is possible. So when they go to that even if they're say in a past lifetime and they die and they go to the in-between life state, then you're sort of outside of time, so you can call on anybody.
Yeah.
So, and often they just show up, but you can also call on them. And then you can have an interaction with them, and that's really, really beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm thinking about this one client who had just lost her brother, and she met him, and it was very transforming for her. Yeah,
and what other, so that gets into the realm of, since you do not only past life regression, but you infuse it with the quantum healing dynamic within it. And so there's a lot of transformation and, healing that happens.
Yeah.
So besides, maybe the emotional healing of having a better understanding of life, death, meaning, healing in loss and trauma, what other types of healing have you seen go on within these sessions?
Sure. So this is specific to Dolores Cannon's technique. It's called quantum healing hypnosis technique. Because she found out at one point that she was accessing a layer of consciousness that could bring about healing. It just started happening. So she devised her technique to access that with focus, with awareness. And so a lot of times people think like past life regression is like past life tourism. It'd be nice to know, if you've been in different places or been with different people just to, just satisfy your curiosity. But all these experiences are being given to you by your higher self, or as we address it, the subconscious. And so after that's happened, then we call forth the subconscious and we ask it questions about the scenes that were just presented to the client. And also we ask it questions that people have written down prior to their session. So it can be, they may want to have guidance with their life, like what's going on. They might be at a fork on their path, like, am I going to do this job or that job, or relationship issues, financial issues, anything that we deal with. And so besides giving guidance about these things, if there's physical issues or emotional issues or energetic issues, you can just go into the body and run energy and clear stuff profoundly, which is really amazing. So I've had people clear physical issues like back pain, growths on their hands. People's life have become unstuck. Like, what else?
Yeah, because I've had like the experiences of, my little dabble into past lives work, which isn't Dolores Cannon's technique, but and sometimes people hold an imprint of a different life within their physical body or so. So like when you said like back pain or hand pain or hand growth or whatever, like do you take them back to that space and kind of have a healing, or like just so people can better understand?
Sure, thank you. So I don't really take them. I don't tell them what to go see. It's their higher self that provides them with the appropriate experiences. And then after they've gone through them, I'll ask it questions about what's this shown, and it will say, because they're dealing with this particular issue and it heals it, And then I ask, is everything taken care of? Do we need to do more healing? And, if needed, it will go in and run energy and clear whatever, guilt or shame or, forgiveness needs to be happening. Yeah.
Great.
Stuff like that.
So the people's, just so people understand, like that it's the person's mind bringing them back to different experiences so that they, for whatever reason, they're being brought back to that experience because it's affecting them in the present day, in the present
Correct.
moment.
Yes. Thank you for explaining that.
And in that space, regardless of how it makes sense on a conscious level, there's an impact. And you can get in there and see what kind of transition and help and support you can make so that no longer has to affect them.
Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, it's such a given for me that I sometimes forget to explain it. But it's really about having a better lifetime right now. It's not like pointlessly reaching back in the past and just trying to figure out stuff.
Yeah.
It is all about, it's like a therapeutic technique, so you can live a better lifetime right now. Whether it is, knowing more about who you are, or finding out about your life purpose, or being cleared from this emotional baggage, or spiritual baggage, or imprints, as you mentioned as well. Yeah. So that's I find it really beautiful because I see people. It's like an upgrade. Yeah, people get like a 2.0
version of themselves. I like that. What about tell me more about some fascinating realms that you got to experience through your clients.
Well, the first thing that pops up now is not really a realm, but
whatever comes up.
Yeah, because I get to speak with I get to meet not only my clients and their personalities, and it's an honor to meet people and find so much about them. It's like a very intimate place that you're at with them. But also I get to meet their past life personas, and sometimes people go into them so much that they really become this person, and you're having a conversation with a totally different person.
That's interesting.
It's really beautiful. But also, one of the cool aspects is that people go back to lifetimes that might have been, that we know, in places that we know of as legends. Like one time, this lady went back to a lifetime where she was a little boy, and it sounded like she was in England, and I take people through important days in their life, and at one point we find out that she was King Arthur.
Oh.
So at one point she was sitting on a throne, and it was in this official building, maybe a cathedral or something, and people were coming to pay their respects. And as I'm asking her to describe what was around her, she says, to the right is this guy. I forgot how she described him, but it was Merlin the wizard.
Wow.
So when that happens, whenever there's like a being or somebody present, I can ask them questions. I ask my client, can you ask them if it's okay to ask them questions? It's like handing the phone over.
Mm-hmm.
Can I speak to them? So usually it happens where they translate between that being and me, but gradually they start channeling them. So I had this conversation with Merlin the wizard about his life, why he came to the planet, what kind of healing he was bringing in, how it affected human consciousness. He even described that everybody carries an energy thread of his particular vibration, and it seems to be on the right side of the head, I think, behind the eye, somewhere, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
And it's, it was to raise the frequency of the planet, so he was one of those people that came in to help, and he guided King Arthur to bring about a more compassionate way of ruling in England. So that was really fascinating. What other realms do people go to? I mean, off the planet, this one lady went to a Pleiadian place and described it, purplish, and I forgot what the body looked like. Oh, and then...
Oh, no, you're fine.
Oh. And then one fascinating thing was when I had two clients that went to the fairy realm. As a kid, I was fascinated by fairies. I always wanted to see them, but never did. Whenever I would go into the forest, I would look for their little fairy wings or little chairs and tables and little crevices in the trees, but never saw them. So I had these two separate clients that described the fairy realm in a similar manner, the same colors, the same experience of it.
And what was that?
It seemed like the mountains were purplish, and there was pink hues, and people kind of look like we do, but they were more attuned to nature, and they were describing the water and nature as being more alive. And then there was much more work with energy, and they could travel between different realms, they used portals, and they were concerned about nuclear testing, because if you were traveling between worlds and a bomb would go off, it would ripple into their worlds and sort of cause transportation difficulties. Yeah, I remember that. It was a very personal story about this one fairy being that had, about her relationships and stuff and what she was doing on the planet. It was similar in the way they described it.
Wow.
So that gave it more validity to me. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, when you hear something from two separate people that don't know each other and they're describing the same similar thing,
exactly.
It becomes a little bit more real.
Exactly.
What about the future?
What about if people go into future lifetimes as well? Yes.
And any information or insight on some of these realms and within the planetary existence of Earth that comes up? Because I mean, you touched on the nuclear testing, and I think that there's right now with everything that is happening right now, and the new president coming in, having now control of 1,900 nukes at his disposal, there's a lot of curiosity and concern about maybe where the direction is going, and maybe you've went there in some of these experiences.
Sure. So the main thing that comes up over and over again is that the planet as a whole and human consciousness is raising its vibration. It is ascending, where before, we might have had like Jesus or Buddha, like the one-off ascended master, male and female, and unfortunately we don't hear about the female ones. But now, like, a lot of us are going to go, and it's already happening. Again, the mechanics of it, I don't know, how that works, but I've asked like the subconscious when I was with the client who was mentioning it, like, how does this work? Like, do you just open your eyes, do you blink, do you wake up one day and you're there? Like, it describes like a new earth is there, and we're slowly shifting into it. So we're raising our vibration, and then it's there.
Okay.
And
and what's there? Can you describe that a little bit?
It's an existence with a higher vibration, so where we are motivated by love instead of fear. There's more unity and connection, and no judgment. So where the ego has been brought back to the proportions where it can be used as a tool instead of it, what we identify with. Yeah. Beautiful. That's what it seems to be. And it seems to be a gradual process, and as I understand it, it happens in everybody's sort of holographic reality separately. So you have your own process with that, and we reach those different vibrations within ourselves. Yeah, again, don't ask me about the mechanics, but that's what I've heard. It's like shedding skin.
Has anybody actually described what the future within their experience has looked like to you when they're in that realm? Since you got descriptions of like the fairy realm with the purple and the pink hues, and
nothing comes into mind. It was more like when I speak about these things, it's with the subconscious, with the higher self. I don't remember any physical descriptions of those realms that pops up right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But just a validation of the movement towards that higher vibrational energy.
Yeah.
I like that.
And also what is important, what's being said over and over, is to not judge the experiences that are going to go on right now.
Yeah.
Like, especially when things are breaking down, that there's purpose behind it.
Yeah, break down to rebuild, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's like the Tower card in tarot, that doesn't mean, bad or negative destruction. It just means transformation.
Yeah.
If you see an old house that's kind of tore up a little bit, maybe it's easier to knock it down and rebuild it than try to rewire all of the broken down walls and give it a new roof and door and windows,
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing.
Yeah. I mean, sure, this information is good to know as terms of like a context within what's happening, but I go into the emotional response, like, I can't go like happy, happy, happy while, shit's breaking down around me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, of course not. But I mean, it's nice to have the dynamic and the inner knowing that, no matter what, even within
it's a benevolent
the negative emotions that might be a current space of feeling, that ultimately those will pass and things will transcend.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Another, I just wanted to mention it. Like for me, I'm from a very like rational culture, very cerebral, so we don't believe in a whole bunch of stuff unless we can touch it and see it. So I was lucky that I've had clients that had verifiable past lives. One went to a lifetime where she worked for U.S. government in a secret base, and she was like doing classified missions into space. This was in the 60s.
Wow.
And so we got the person's name, and she saw the planes that she was flying in. So she goes home after the session, Googles the information, and this Wikipedia page comes up, and it like matched what she described. And then she of course had experienced it from the inside out, so there was a whole bunch of stuff that was not in the
there.
Yeah. So
that's amazing.
It was amazing.
See, those confirmations, I mean, not that we need confirmations, but the ego mind still needs the confirmations.
We do, exactly, yes.
It's just so that we can have a level of trust and reassurance that, these things that are hard to grasp within our conscious current realm of existence, that, okay, well, how much more validation, this person didn't know this before, describes a certain name, certain information, and lo and behold, it pops up on, when she Googles it,
yes. Especially people who are new to this, it's more accessible for them to have that sort of evidence. I had another client who had a toddler that started talking to her about that he used to be a tall German baseball player. And so she had no context for past lives. She was raised in church. And she didn't know what he was talking about. She thought he was using his words wrong, like he wanted to be a tall baseball player. Mm-hmm. So she took him to like baseball classes or groups or whatever you take your kids to. I don't know what that is. And he has a knack for it. And he kept talking to her about it. And one time she brought him to the Dodger Stadium, and there was a giant poster of Babe Ruth, another legendary baseball player, on the wall. The kid lost it. Like he had like a temper tantrum, like take me away from here, crying. She couldn't leave him in the same space. And so she found out that this kid used to be Lou Gehrig, the baseball player. That's what he kept telling her. So she took him to her pastor. The pastor said, let him do an exorcism because he's possessed. And she was like, let me not do that just yet. Let me get a second opinion. So she reached out and found me. We did this session and several, and she found out that she was Lou Gehrig's mom in that past lifetime. Wow. So they came back together again. She excavated in the session like tons of details about their lives together that she was able to fact check with still living friends and relatives. And in the process, this was a giant mind opening for her, to depart from her sort of rigid religious upbringing to an expansive view of the universe of past lifetimes, brought about by the experience of her kid, which is, she documented everything, and she's written a book about it, which is going to be released in March of next year.
So fascinating.
Yeah, and that was such confirmation, because she would go back and back and back. She has like done 3 sessions to the same lifetime. So I asked her higher self, like, why does she go back and back and back to the same spot? Like, this is so unusual for me. And it said because she is to excavate or to mine the information and to write a book about it. To help people make this information more accessible to a lot of people.
Wow. Yeah. And to make a lot of maybe people that are more skeptical opening their awareness.
Exactly.
Especially, sometimes I like the element of when people are very scientific or like engineers, and then they become healers or something, like, it's like almost like, not that the healer can't be believable on their own, but a lot of times people like to sink their teeth into something that, okay, well, that person was a skeptic and now they're a believer, so it's more easy for them to jump on board.
Yes, they have done the Matrix and figured it out, and then they jumped out of it.
Yeah. I love that. Anything else that you would like to share
about this?
About past life, about healing. I mean, anything. Like if you had to, kind of sum up and or share anything else, what would it be?
Well, for me, it's opened up the world to a magical universe. It's teeming with life, and there's so much love present, and there's different beings on different levels that are all working together to make not the planet, but to make living a better place. It's a really beautiful, diverse place, this universe. That's like my take on it.
I love that. Yeah. And where can people find you if they want to, get a session from you, or, do you have a website that people can look up and some information that you can share?
Sure. So I am based in Eagle Rock in Northeast Los Angeles. I have a studio there where I do these healings. I do meditation groups there as well, and then I do them around town. So my website is source-energy-therapy.com. My Instagram is my first name. It's Jeroen, Jeroen, is love. It's my affirmation. Jeroen is love. You can find me on Facebook, Source Energy Therapy, or by my proper name, Jeroen de Witt.
And every once in a while, we have him to do group sessions here at Liberate Emporium. And well, thank you so much for joining us. I think that this is, hopefully a very interesting and eye-opening topic for many people. And we'd love to have you on again and dive in deeper as we, kind of explore these realms.
I can't wait. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. If you guys like this episode, and girls, I get in the habit of saying you guys all the time, and you change that. Please, like us and leave a review on iTunes. It helps people find us. So if you leave a review, 5 stars would be great, but whatever you feel. But it really, if we get rated on there and reviews get up, then it becomes more and more searchable. So we thank you so much for your feedback, and join us next time.